Before we attempt to connect to our Postgres database server from the client, we need to understand a little bit about the configuration files on Postgres. First, we need to take a look at the configuration files on Postgres. So there are two main config files on Postgres. First, you have the postgresql.conf. This is created automatically when you install PostgreSQL. This config file basically affects the behavior of your instance. For example, if you want to change the number of clients that can connect to your database, you would have to change it in the postgresql.conf file. All of this have a default value when the database is installed, but you can change these values to better suit your workload and working environment. The most basic way of setting these parameters is to edit the postgresql.conf file. However, since version 9.4, PostgreSQL introduced a new configuration file, the postgresql.auto.conf. It's worth noting that the autoconf must be modified using the alter system statement in PostgreSQL, and the postgresql.conf can be modified using the basic text editor. To show the location of this configuration file, you would use the show config_file. In order to connect to the database, one of the main parameters we need to change in the config file is the listening addresses, because by default, Postgres is set to listen on the local host. So we need to replace the local host with another IP that we want to allow connection from. The second config file that we want to take a look on is the pg_hba.conf. The pg_hba.conf file handles the default authentication options for client connections to the database. So in the config file, it takes the form of the type, the database, the user, the address, and the method. Each entry specifies how matching requests are authenticated. So by default, if you type psql at the command line on the host where PostgreSQL is running, peer authentication method will be used. It will attempt to log you on as the database user whose login matches the current logged in Linux user. When you're logged on to the server as Postgres, when you're trying to connect to the database, this configuration file will automatically map back your user to the database user and authenticate you as that user. So if you wanted to require password authentication by default, all you need to do now is set the method field for the local entry to password. To allow a remote user to log into the database using a non-hash password, you can add a new line to the file. So in this example, you would have the host name. You can specify a specific database or all the databases, the login user, their IP, and for the method, specify MD5. Both the pghba file and the postgresql.conf file are in the same directory. In the next lecture, we are going to attempt to connect to our database as a client or a remote machine.